What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Monday Night Football Pre-Lock Show. I'm your host, Head Chopper. Going to break down this game for you, talk about this game and whatever else for the next roughly 30 minutes until this thing kicks off and locks on the lineup. So Monday nights, always about the Squirrel Patrol joining us. So, Squirrel, how was your NFL this weekend?
Good. I was down in Miami for the FanDuel live, football live final. It's always a good time. Like surprised how many people, are at the live final. Like, hey man, I watch your show, I read your articles. Like that's always awesome to hear. So glad it's the work's getting out there and people are watching. But yeah, it was a good time. Finished 18th. I had 4 entries. The best one finished 18th, but like the worst one was in the 40s. So kind of clumped together there in like the second quartile or whatever. But it's good. I got every single one of the entries like paid over the minimum. So that worked out well. It was a good time. I didn't go on the cruise. They had a cruise, and apparently the cruise was a great time for FanDuel. It wasn't like a great time for setting your lineups because like they were supposed to like get off the boat 9 a.m. Sunday, and it kept getting pushed back. And I guess it was pushed back to about 2 o'clock. Which is not good on NFL Sunday morning when you're trying to get a bunch of lineups in for a live final. But I had skipped the cruise, so I was at the hotel working on my lineups. But yeah, great weekend.
Yeah, sounds good. Would you say you've how would you rate your NFL season thus far?
Good. It's been my best NFL season.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I had the Million Maker.
Oh well, I mean, okay, yeah, you're right. But yeah, so it was a good weekend for you. That sounds good. But we got a NFL game tonight, and we've got a doozy of a game here. We got Philly against Seattle. I'm gonna pull up scores and odds here and see if I can get the latest line and see if that indicates anything to us as to what's going on. It's still four and a half. Eagles. It opened at 4.5. It's at 4.5 round. There was a little bit of movement in between, but nothing particularly big. Like here we are, man. 31 minutes to lock in. I don't think we can say for sure who is the starting quarterback right now for Seattle. I think we all assumed it was Drew Lock, and then Geno Smith was active, which made a lot of people go, "Oh, Geno's going to be the starter now. He's active," but not so fast. This is Pete Carroll, and he could just be an emergency quarterback. That is not something that's totally out of the ordinary. And now the latest word is that Drew Lock is taking snaps from the starting center, and Geno is not on the field yet. So, I kind of got a feeling after about the first 5 minutes about thinking about Geno being active. I kind of got this feeling like it's probably going to be Drew Lock anyway. But we still had Geno listed here, so I roll with Geno. But I think it's going to be Drew Lock. I think that's what we're looking at. So, that's what's your take on that situation right there?
I thought when they made Geno active that that had to be an indication that he was going to be the starting quarterback. But I guess maybe they really were just trying to keep their options open. If he's not on the field yet, like that's a bad sign. If Drew Lock is there taking the snaps in pregame warmups, like that's probably a sign that Drew Lock is going to be the starter. But like we really don't have much insight. I do think that like just who is on the field right now, warming up is the best and really only thing we have to go on. And it is possible they just kept Geno active because they wanted to see how he looked in pregame warmups, and maybe it wasn't as good as they were hoping, but we don't know. I think the Seattle GM was just on like the pregame show saying that Geno looked surprisingly good when they had him warming up, but we don't know where he is right now, so it's hard to say that he would be the starter.
Yeah, I mean, there's anything that could happen. He could not be out there because he's in the back taking a nice little pain shot and, getting, who knows. And then, but if that wasn't enough, Squirrel, on the other side, we've got the Jalen Hurts flu game. I mean, he's been questionable. He was downgraded a couple of days ago to questionable for this game. There was some serious question marks about him. And now all of a sudden, he's going to be there. He traveled separately with the team. That's to not infect everybody else. But do you trust a guy like Jalen Hurts? Like, do you trust? We don't even know how bad he feels, but it was bad enough that he did have the question tag. Like, how do you feel about Jalen? What do you think about the flu stuff, man?
Actually, I don't know. I mean, these guys seem to play through a lot. Like, if I had the flu, I'm not doing anything. I can't even do my fantasy football lineups when I have the flu. But I mean, these guys seem to play through these things. That's why they get paid. So You got to figure he's getting the best medical attention, to get over that flu or cold or whatever it is. He's getting the hydration. So I don't know. I would have to think that it affects performance a little bit, and maybe that's a little bit of an upgrade to the Philadelphia running backs. But I also
Vicious. The fact that he's had a few means to me that, like you said, the best medical attention, right? How do these guys really knock this stuff out? They are not like us in the same way, in the sense that we get the flu, we got to go lay up in bed and we got to try to do what we can to just painfully suck down water or something to hydrate or what you don't want to do. These guys will get in that locker room and they'll get the IVs, man. They get the IVs overnight at their house. They'll get this out of their system about 50% faster than the average guy will, just because of all that attention. So my feeling is maybe he's going to be okay. He's looked lethargic for several weeks now, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, he's battling. So if he goes out there and looks lethargic, it's not necessarily flu. That's just the way he's been acting lately. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays. So guys, fire up those questions, man. That's what we're here for. I'm keeping track of them all. We'll get to them. Let's take a look at the inactives. The Philadelphia Eagles, Darius Slay he had something pop up, and he's going to be out for maybe the rest of the regular season. We don't know yet, but we'll see how that plays out. That hurts. Nothing huge over there for Philly other than that. For Seattle, oh yeah, they had a couple seconds. Devin Weatherspoon, the good rookie out of Illinois, he's out tonight, along with Jamal Adams, their safety. I don't know if that's that big of a downgrade in the pass defense. It's probably not. Maybe more in the run game defense. But anything you take away from those inactives that you can use tonight?
I mean, I think the big thing was that Geno is active. I mean, yeah, it's typical like decision points on the fourth string running backs and fifth, sixth wide receivers. I do think the Seattle secondary is a little banged up. But that's probably the main takeaway. But then it's hard to know how to balance that with Jalen Hurts being sick. So yeah, not tremendously impactful for me.
All right. Get to some questions here for you guys. Again, fire them off. That's what we're here for, the next 25 minutes or so, and that's what we'll do. And I'll stop the show here in about roughly 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll give our Plums play of the night. So you got that going for you. But Lip says, is it smart to fade both quarterbacks here, Squirrel?
Yeah, I think it's in play. I mean, it's always in play on Showdown, right? Quarterbacks are maybe always a little bit overowned. Because you just never know. Like, and in this particular situation, we don't know what's going to happen. There's probably going to be people playing both Geno Smith and Drew Lock here. I think we're kind of landing on the idea it's probably going to be Drew Lock. But like if you play a plausible lineup without either quarterback, then suddenly you're kind of in a position where you don't care. So yeah, I think it's definitely in play.
Okay, so we got a question: who's starting for Seattle? We don't know yet. Travis, we're thinking Drew Lock, but we'll see. But it kind of, the whole quarterback thing leads me to think of a conversation I was having earlier. By the way, I had a conversation before the show earlier with somebody, Squirrel, and I'll get to that in a minute about the quarterback. But he also wanted to know if big Houston Texans fan, if the Texans make the playoffs, is DeMeco Ryans the coach of the year?
I think so. Yeah. I don't get like too into the awards, like the features or anything like that. I think we're actually not allowed to bet on features.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have to think he'd be the coach of the year. I mean, I always try to go back and remember like what I thought about teams in week one, and like I didn't think Houston had a chance. If you had told me like that the way like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud have looked was like flipped, where like Bryce Young has looked as good as CJ Stroud has looked and vice versa, then I would not have been surprised. I did not think Houston had a chance here. So the fact that they're like in the playoff race is something.
Yeah, so the conversation also was talking about, well, Jalen's got the flu and I don't want to play Jalen with the flu and all this. My thought is you have these, if this was a main slate with 10 or 11 games, man, yeah, I could fade a flu-ridden quarterback, or I could fade Drew Lock or any of this stuff, right? It's a showdown. You've got 6 roster spots, and you kind of need to be. If a guy's going to be in the top 2, 3, or 4 scoring at the end of the night, you kind of need him on your roster somewhere. It's a showdown. What are the odds that a starting quarterback, whether he has the flu or whether he's a third stringer, who cares? What are the odds that he's not going to be in like the top 6 or 7 fantasy points at the end of the game? If wide receivers are going to get there, they got to get there somehow. Somebody's got to throw them the ball to get them there. So my whole thought on the quarterback is, and it goes to a question in chat from Travis, if you're building 150, do you keep Geno on lock in your pool? You definitely pick the starter and Jalen Hurts. These guys are all viable and should be rostered. Just, the flu should, like I said, if this was a 10-game main slate, maybe we rethink a guy with the flu. It's a showdown, man. He just needs to be part of like the top 6 or so in scoring at the end of the night. And it's tough to do for a quarterback to not get there. So I think you play him. So who's starting for Seattle? Question Swift in captain. Now, this would be everybody thinking Jalen's not going to be good. Let's go with Swift and captain. What do you think about that strategy? Is it going to be too overowned now?
I don't think so. He never kind of gets as owned as he should be, honestly. I don't think it's a bad play. I don't think it's a bad idea that like maybe the rushing would be affected if he's really under the weather more so than the passing. Because like a little bit more physical exertion there, the rushing. And so maybe they're dialing back the Philadelphia rushing plays a little bit in terms of like the quarterback rushing plays. And so then maybe that's an advantage for Swift.
Let's get to Carolina guys in there with the FanDuel questions. Big FanDuel. We got a big FanDuel base here that watches the show. Let's just go for it. The single entry MVP, your favorite one, and then give us something in the large fields MVP, maybe low owned MVP. What do you got? Just a smorgasbord of MVPs on FanDuel.
Honestly, I'd go Drew Lock with both of them. Everything's a gamble, right? Like, it would be painful if you put in Drew Lock and Geno Smith comes out there and he takes the first snaps and he's just going. You've got a possibility here to get a starting quarterback that will likely be pretty low ownership. I would go Drew Lock. I mean, that's definitely a plausible, single entry play, like a single entry MVP on FanDuel, and I think you'll get him at low ownership.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so Lip's got a question for you. Can you play both Geno and Drew Lock in the same lineup? Give him your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I just would not do that. It's probably going to be one or the other. Like, even if the team is going to be playing both of them, you probably don't want to be playing either. Like if one guy is going to get a half, and the other guy gets a half or something, you probably just want to go somewhere else. So it's hard. Like, it's obviously not impossible for that scenario to play out, but it's not something I would
do. Yeah. So for what it's worth, let me see here. Looking at Sim Labs, which is where everybody's going to go to. Now we have corrected our Sim Labs, and it has Drew Lock in there. So he just ran a nice update here about 10 minutes ago with Drew Lock in there. So I might want to rerun some lineups there with some Drew Lock if I get some time here. But otherwise, let's see what else we got here. How much of the field do you think will fade the Seattle quarterbacks? It's a good question. With this ambiguity of who's starting or not, are we going to get low ownership on these guys on DraftKings at least?
I think we could. This is a primetime game. Maybe some casual players. Like, we were only 20 minutes before kickoff here, and we still don't have an affirmative word on who the Seattle starter is going to be. I'm going to go with Drew Lock here, but I don't know. I mean, and then it's a possibility we flip over the cards, turn on the TV, and about half my lineups are dead. But I think you got to go with Drew Lock. I think you got to absorb the risk, and I do think you're going to have a lower ownership. I think there's going to be a sizable percentage of Geno Smith lineups and Drew Lock lineups, no matter who the starter is.
Yeah, Shannon Lambert says Jordan flu game coming for Hurts, probably gets 5 touchdowns. It wouldn't surprise me a bit that if this is all He's had so much time to recover from this and has got the best meds available to him that probably feels fine and is no big deal. Julio and MVP, yikes. Don't know about that one. Would you do anything with Julio tonight?
Not really. I mean, I'd maybe have a handful of Julio lineups in 150 lineup sets. I don't like playing guys like that at the MVP because even if like I think Julio's like best outcome is probably 2 catches and one of them is a touchdown. And that's not necessarily enough to get you there in the MVP spot. Like you maybe need more raw points there in the MVP spot.
Yeah. Will you adjust Eagles pass catchers depending on? Well, that's the wrong team, Kevin. Well,
Well, he might be in the Eagles.
let me see. Will you adjust the Eagles pass catchers? Okay, let's take it from both sides.
Yeah.
Let's say Geno or Locke is starting. Will you adjust the Eagles pass catcher, and will you adjust the Seahawks depending on which one of those guys starts?
Nah, I'm honestly treating like Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock and Geno Smith are similar enough that it doesn't really make a difference to me. Thankfully, they're similar in price too on our DFS sites. So it's not pretty easy to switch from one to the other. I don't think there's a huge difference. They're both well within each other's range of outcomes, if that makes sense. Where I'm not going to start adjusting like the receivers on either team based off of like Geno or Drew Lock.
I will say this much that for as good of a year as Geno, a surprising year Geno had last year, he hasn't been all that great this year at all. And Drew Lock might be in the same category as him now. Who knows, man? So I don't disagree with what you're saying there. So QQ for DK GPP. I'm running 4 Philly players with no Hurts. I've got 2 pass catchers and Swift. Do you use Elliott or Gainwell for that last piece?
I'd use Elliott. I wouldn't necessarily want to have both the Philly running backs.
Yeah.
In the same lineup.
Yeah, and I suppose you say the same thing for the Seattle guys, right? No double running backs.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe when they're super cheap. So like, maybe like Boston Scott or something. There's a big price difference there between like Gainwell and Scott. And Swift has kind of been the main guy. So at these prices, I would only play one running back from each team.
Yeah. I see our boy Butthole Jenkins in the chat. Ready for the filling it in your Plums play of the night. He's got a little broke it down for us there. All right. AJ Brown or DK Metcalf in cash on DraftKings?
I'd go AJ Brown.
Are they both safe for cash, or would you like if you had your druthers, would neither one of them make your cash?
See, I'm not playing on cash tonight. I would still say AJ Brown though. I just think he's probably the highest projected non-quarterback in this game. So that's where I would
go. Would you say what's your thoughts on the Seattle running back situation? Kenny Walker or Charbonnet? Which one for you tonight?
I actually like Charbonnet on DraftKings. Like he's well priced. Like they priced him back down, but he's still probably going to be getting snaps, catching passes, and this is probably if Philadelphia is winning this game or is in the lead of this game, probably more of a Charbonnet game script, right? Like in terms of like catching the passes. So I would probably go with Charbonnet.
This is kind of nuts for an NFL game. I would agree with that. It's not like this is a throwaway game for these teams either, because Philly wants to win to keep some distance with Dallas for the division and possible number 1 seed. Seattle is fighting for their playoff life here, man. Like if they lose this game, they're as good as cooked, and so they've got to win this. And then we've got all these things going on, but. And yes, Pete is a joy. This is what Pete enjoys. Pete Carroll enjoys this stuff, Paul. Yeah, we know that. Metcalf or Lockett, captain for a DK single entry. It's Metcalf or Lockett. Let's break it down to all 3 of those big Seattle wide receivers. Which one's your favorite for a DK single entry MVP?
I think Tyler Lockett. I think it's a price savings thing. Philadelphia gives up a bunch of receptions. They don't necessarily give up like a bunch of big plays. But I think they have been leading the league, like giving up the most receptions per game in the NFL for most of the season. I think they still are. And it's just teams like to pass on them. They don't like to run on them. So I think it's more like a Tyler Lockett receptions game than necessarily like the long DK Metcalf touchdown game.
Okay. All right, guys, get those questions in. Keep them coming. There's about 13 minutes till lock, but we're gonna take care of some business, and then if you ain't got no questions, we'll jump out of here. But before we even get to the Plums play of the night, I'm gonna give you the Sim Labs read. I was just telling you we just got the update in. It has Drew Lock as the QB now. So if you want to go run some of that there, the Sims Lab, use the Sim Labs to generate your DFS lineups through the power of simulation. It combines data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your preferences. In just a few clicks, you can get a bunch of well-built lineups that correlate. They're just solid lineups. There's no magic formula, not the magic beans, but just nice lineups. If you're on the go, man, you're in a hurry to knock it out. It's what you got. The all combo and NFL premium subscribers have access to the Sim Labs tool. I believe is behind a paywall now, but NFL premium and combo has it. So I ran some Sim Labs earlier just because I wanted to throw some in there. Yeah, right now it's not spitting me out. Sometimes you want to tweak it to your own thing. If you want to do if you want to take it for every 100% what it gives you, you can do that. It's fine. It's not giving me enough DK Metcalf right now, so I'm gonna have to tweak that. Hopefully, we'll grab a couple minutes right before lock and do that. But I think it's time, man. I think it's time. I got two guys queued up for my play of the night, Plums play of the night. So I'm gonna give it to you, and hopefully you don't take them both. But take it away, Squirrel.
All right, so my guy is Tyler Lockett. I think it's the thing that I referenced earlier that Philadelphia gives up a bunch of receptions. Teams like to pass on them. I see Tyler Lockett piling up the receptions here. Probably helps if Drew Lock is the quarterback. So yeah, I'm going to go Tyler Lockett.
Okay, it's interesting. I think we're on a very similar wavelength here with this one because my Plums play of the night, DK Metcalf. Expensive, kind of low-hanging fruit. I'm trying to get him in some more lineups here. I like Lockett. I love JSN, but I'm going to go Metcalf because I like the fact that, number one, Darius Slay is out to an already kind of slow Eagle secondary that doesn't defend fast wide receivers particularly well, and we know what DK can do with his speed. I'm going with some DK Metcalf heavy tonight. I think he could have a big game. I know he's expensive, low-hanging fruit. If you want to pivot to something else that's I think is a good play, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba from the same team, but I like some DK Metcalf, so we got that rocking for us. All right. We got about 10 minutes left, guys. Fire off some more questions. We're going to run through some props here, and then we'll shut it down if you ain't got no more questions. But I want to go to some props right now, and then I want to get your first read on these squirrels. In fact, put me a little 6-teamer in here because we had some luck with that. We caught some bad breaks the last time we did this, but it was pretty close, man. It was pretty close. Jalen Hurts, the flu game, 247.5 on those yards. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll go under. And maybe it's me projecting onto Jalen Hurts. I just I can't. I know I can't perform when I've got the flu, so I'm gonna take the under. And you know what? And like just that thought process, it might not be necessary against Seattle. Like he may not need to be passing the ball all over the field for them to win this game.
It is a tough one, man. I was gonna say less too, but then you start thinking about the secondary injuries for Seattle. But I think I'm with you. Let's get some less on Jalen Hurts. We talked about the quarterback less. What about the receiving yards in? AJ Brown, they've got this thing over here where they have some alternate lines on some of their players over there. I find it interesting to mess with that. But the base number on AJ Brown is 76.5 on the yardage prop. What would you think about that one?
I'd probably go under again. Just thinking that like Philadelphia might not need to be passing the ball. Like I don't necessarily see this as a shootout. So Yeah, probably taking the under there.
All right, I'm looking at the Seattle wide receivers on the other side. They're all not that far away from each other. They're not that far away. They're lumped in there. DK is 63 and a half. Lockett's 51 and a half, and JSN is 41 and a half. Do any of those stand out to you as more or less?
I might go JSN over. Was 41 and a half.
Oh, you know what? Just I swear, it's up to 43 and a half. Somebody done steamed it on me.
Still, I would probably, of all the receivers, if I'm going to go one on the over, it'd probably be JSN. Yeah, I'd still do like over 43 and a half. Let's see, what are the numbers on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett?
DK was 59. Oh man, he went down 2 yards. Yeah, he went down 2 yards. 59 and a half now. And Lockett's 51 and a half.
That sounds about right. I'd maybe go the over on Lockett. DK sounds pretty good at 59 and a half. Like I'd do like an alternate on if DK is a guy, it seems like he'll go for like 180 or something, right? Not necessarily like he could go for like 40 or 180 or something like that. So I'd look at like some of the alternate, 90-yard plus on DK.
Man, I'll tell you what, Squirrel, they're steaming it. They're steaming JSN. He's up to 45 and a half now.
All right.
We did this thing about 90 seconds ago. He was 41 and a half. Now I got to get out of that. I can't do that. They got me. I'm not. Yeah. I got reverse CLV. I'm getting out. I'm going with Lockett. He's held steady right there. What about some rushing yards? What do you think about these running backs? Kenneth Walker, his base was Swift has 60 and a half on his rushing yards. What do you think about Swifty?
That sounds about right. I probably wouldn't bet the over or the under. If I had to, maybe go the over, but don't feel that strongly about it.
And what would you say for Kenneth Walker? What if I said 69 and a half and I get some extra juice on it? What do you think about that? Too much?
Yeah,
it's an alternate line.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of assume that Charbonnet is like the more of the pass catching back.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Walker is going to get more of the rushing yards. But we really don't know because Walker was out for a while and then he came back and Charbonnet looked pretty good when he was, he was the only guy there. So not entirely sure how they're going to break it down. Like 69 and a half is a lot.
Yeah, it is. Anything else standing out? What about I don't know. Anything. What you got for me? Anything field goals? You feeling some field goals tonight? 1.5 on each one of these guys?
Do we have any like Drew Lock passing yards?
They don't have them up. Oh, they just put them up. Oh man. Okay. Things are changing fast. All right. 220 and a half. 220.5.
Let's see. How do you do? Yeah, 260.
Man, that's kind of low, Squirrel.
Yeah, I'd go the over.
Yeah, man. I gotta go. We gotta hit the over. All right, I got those in there. I'm putting this in. Hold on, real quick. Yeah, let's do that before this thing shuts down and before they move those lines anymore.
The other thing I'd look at I'd look for some like the reception number props and go like over on the Seattle receivers.
Yeah, I agree with. Especially, and that's what I was looking at earlier. Especially JSN 4 receptions. That's a little check down magnet, man. If he doesn't get the yards, he should get some receptions here. Just pile on those things by the line of scrimmage. All right. We're just about ready to get out of here, guys. Let me see here. Looking for some questions. Robbie wants you to recap how you did in the desert.
Oh, it was the beach. So yeah, I didn't go to Scottsdale. I did King of the Beach with DraftKings in November, and then did the FanDuel. They had like a cruise to the Bahamas out of Miami, and I ended up skipping the cruise. But so I just went to Miami, stayed in the hotel room, and stayed at the hotel instead of going on the cruise. But yeah, got 18th out of 80 at the live final, so not bad. But yeah, always a good time to hang out with the FanDuel guys and see some of the other players I'm in competition with, all throughout the year and stuff. So that was a good time.
Yeah. Paul wants to know what you're feeling on double tight end tonight.
2 tight ends? Yeah, I think you could do 2 tight ends, preferably one from each team. But yeah, you could do like some Noah Fant and Dallas Goedert.
Yep, Noah Fant has the old Drew Lock narrative going. They got traded together from Denver, so That's it. All right, guys. I'm not seeing very many more questions here that we haven't already covered. So we got about 3 minutes. I'm going to go edit some lineups and get some more DK Metcalf in mind. Squirrel, always fun to have you. We'll be back on Thursday night for another show. Until then, guys, for Squirrel, I was your host, Chop, and Stevie behind the scenes. Good luck in those GPPs, but for now, we are out of here.